Theft is theft. There's no excuse for glorifying it, but not every thief is the same. Some steal purely for the experience, or even for love. Such was the case with Stephane, whose passion for art would lead him to fill a warehouse with billions worth of pieces from 200 different museums. When asked why by the judge, he would simply say, "I just enjoy art." Actually, Stephane was not from ancient times. He was born in 1971 as the only child of a distinguished family in the Alsace region of northeastern France. His father was a sales manager in Sweden, just across the border. His mother was a nurse. For most of his youth, his family was well off, living in a large house filled with elegant furniture. His parents had hoped he would become a lawyer, but after a few years of study, he found it wasn't for him and dropped out of university. But then, at the age of 22, this abundance came to an end. His parents' marriage fell apart, and his father left, taking the belongings with him. He and his mother had to move to a smaller house, losing their social status. Consequently, the antiques were replaced with plain IKEA furniture. What alleviated Stephane's trauma was meeting an archaeology enthusiast woman through a friend. Katherine was the same age as Stephane, and they shared a mutual passion for museums. They were thrilled to be surrounded by aesthetic objects. So, as you can imagine, Stephane had found the love of his life, and all they did was explore, enjoy, and love each other. A few months later, while the couple was visiting a museum in the French village of Thann, they came across an antique pistol. Stephane's father was famous for his collection of old firearms, but he hadn't bothered to leave a single piece behind. This pistol, displayed in a glass case on the second floor, was a rare handcrafted piece from the 1730s. It was more beautiful than any item in his father's collection. Stephane wasn't a religious person, but he knew he shouldn't give in to his desires and try to possess everything he wanted. He knew he should resist temptation and wrongdoing. However, the beauty of the pistol had captivated him, and perhaps he could take out his frustration with his father by stealing it. The most beautiful piece, more stunning than anything in his father's collection, could be his. He had no desire to physically harm or cause fear to anyone. He touched it, showed the gun, and whispered some of his thoughts to his girlfriend. Katherine, who was as in love with rare items as he was, gave an answer that Stephane remembered as uniting their destinies completely. "Go on," she said. Katherine took it, and so did Stephane. After taking that gun, everything had changed. He kept them all hidden in his mother's attic for the next 3 years. Only 60 masterpieces he showed to his lover had accumulated. Stephane, stealing artworks, didn't diminish his appetite, but instead fueled it as his desire grew even more insatiable. His hunger was like that of a vampire thirsty for blood. The couple, crossing the snow-covered Alps for a weekend, stole a magnificent goblet from a vendor at the Zurich Art Fair, plated in silver and gold dating back to the 16th century. Then they went to the Netherlands for another fair, where they seized a brilliant presentation of swans released onto a lake from 1620 from a vendor while he was having his meal. At another booth, they easily stole a 17th century seascape painting on copper, as if pulling a hair from butter. A week later, they moved on to Belgium, where they stole a valuable painting featuring butterflies fluttering around a bouquet of tulips by the Flemish master Van Cassel from a village museum with only one security guard. Right after this incident, during a visit to an auction in Paris, they stole a painting by 2 stars of Renaissance art, Peter Bruegel the Elder and his son, Peter Bruegel the Younger. Stephane's exploits were progressing unbelievably. All of this had happened within just a few months, with them systematically targeting museums, auctions, and exhibitions, waiting for opportune moments to commit thefts. Indeed, Stephane's accomplice was his beloved, but they were choosing environments with weak security. However, just the paintings mentioned alone amounted to millions of dollars in loot. It wasn't just paintings. They had also stolen a gold-plated hourglass, a stained glass window, an iron alms box, a collection of copper items, a brass hunting horn, a cavalry sword, several daggers, a gilded ostrich egg, a wooden altar, and half a dozen pocket watches. The value of the items was inconsequential to them. They were stuffed with art and craftsmanship stored away in the attic. Stephane gently ran his fingertips over the pieces, as if making love to the artworks in the room where they had placed a bed, amidst million-dollar artworks experienced in a museum. They lived their lives lying among these treasures, indulging in the affection and attention they gave. He would argue that stockpiling these artworks in his room, which belonged to a time before mechanization began shaping them from random pieces, was about giving them the love and care they deserved. Throughout their thefts, Stefan and his girlfriend Katherine, who often acted as their lookout, never resorted to violence. They never even treated anyone rudely. They typically stole during museum opening hours and calmly walked out through the front door. For them, the thrill of possession was far stronger than the fear of getting caught. From 1995 onwards, Stefan and Katherine conducted thefts approximately every 2 weeks for 7 years. They usually took multiple pieces each time they entered a place. By the end of 7 years, they had amassed over 250 artworks in his mother's attic. Due to Stefan's stubborn and obsessive love for the stolen pieces, these artworks never made it to market. As I said, it was never about money for him, and he never intended to sell them. They had all become a part of his life. According to him, Stefan's unsuspecting mother, oblivious to the millions of dollars worth of artworks in the attic, was still working and supporting 3 people at her age. Stefan didn't consider theft a job. For him, stealing art was a way of life filled with excitement and passion. They never invited friends over, and if something broke, calling a repairman was out of the question. They either fixed it themselves or left it broken. Despite all these precautions, with 250 stolen pieces, the police were, of course, on their trail. Each theft led to investigations, witnesses were questioned, and sketches were drawn. However, those present at the crime scenes were usually not entirely sure of what they had seen. Once, Stefan was caught on camera while working in a museum in France. However, he was lucky because the old camera's footage was unclear. The French authorities suspected that an elderly retired couple was stealing artworks a few times a year at random locations. They had no idea they were dealing with a pair of regular professional art thieves. Since the thefts occurred not only in France but also in Switzerland, Belgium, and Germany, the authorities couldn't connect the incidents. By 2000, Stefan and Katherine had committed 200 thefts and amassed 300 stolen artworks. They operated in various countries, stealing from museums, churches, and art fairs without leaving a trace. They were once caught in Switzerland, but were released after claiming their innocence. However, in 2001, Stefan stole a horn from the 1580s from a museum and panicked when he realized he had left his fingerprints. Katherine returned to the museum to wipe away the prints, but Stefan was identified by museum staff and arrested. The police raided Stefan's house, hoping to find the stolen artworks, but his mother and Katherine had destroyed all the pieces. Stefan was devastated when he learned this. He was sentenced to prison and attempted suicide but survived. His mother and girlfriend were also sentenced to prison. After being released in 2005, Stefan wrote a book about his thefts but was caught stealing again in Belgium and imprisoned once more. In 2016, he was caught trying to sell an artwork on eBay and was imprisoned again in 2019. In 2023, he was sentenced to house arrest. Stefan robbed approximately 200 museums and stole artworks worth around $2 billion, most of which were destroyed. Throughout his career as a thief, he was caught and imprisoned multiple times, and his passion for art ultimately cost him dearly.